Hi all. Today I will share 7 amazing prophecies that cover deep and exciting themes regarding our future and current world events. These prophecies come from biblical texts and are predictions that many believe are beginning to come true right now in our modern world. From the rebirth of nations and great knowledge to the threat of false teachers and spiritual awakening, each of these prophecies carries deep meaning and warning. Let's dive into them together and discuss how they might apply to our times and our personal life paths. The first prophecy concerns the rebirth of Israel. The Bible predicted that Israel would be reassembled from all corners of the earth and become an independent state, which happened in 1948. But the prophecies point to further events that we may yet see. The second prophecy concerns increased knowledge and travel. The book of Daniel speaks of a time when knowledge will increase, and people will move from one end of the earth to the other. It is the modern era of the internet and global travel that reflects these words more vividly than ever. The third prophecy is wars and rumors of wars. According to the Gospel of Matthew, this will be one of the signs of the end times. Every day we hear about conflicts and tensions in different parts of the world, which makes us think about the imminence of fulfilling these words. The fourth prophecy speaks of global natural disasters such as earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. Many of them occur with surprising regularity, and their magnitude is only getting larger, which underscores the seriousness of these predictions. The fifth prophecy concerns the decline of morality and love among people. In times of tension and conflict, human kindness often fades, which has also been predicted as a sign that the end times are approaching. The sixth prophecy concerns a revival of religious interest and spiritual awakening. In recent years, we have seen an increasing interest in spiritual practices and religious instruction in many countries. The seventh and final prophecy concerns the emergence of false prophets and messiahs who will mislead the people. This warning remains relevant as many leaders today claim a unique role and mission, often contradicting popular religious teachings. Ezekiel, one of the great prophets, wrote that even in destruction and captivity, the people of Israel would be restored. This prophecy looked incredible, since the Jews were scattered throughout the world and deprived of statehood. When Israel was recreated in 1948, many saw it as a fulfillment of the ancient words of Ezekiel. The prophecy not only predicted the rebirth of the country, but also that Israel would once again become the center of Jewish culture and religion. This revival has had a profound impact on global politics and worldviews. Israel has played a key role in many international relations and conflicts, becoming a beacon of hope for many Jews. In the context of biblical prophecy, the event of 1948 was not just a political act, but a sign foretold thousands of years ago. This highlights the uniqueness of the biblical texts and their significance for believers. Thus, Israel's return to the world map became a symbol not only of political independence, but also of spiritual rebirth. Moving on to the next aspect of this prophecy, it is worth paying attention to the further development of events in Israel after its revival. Since then, the country has faced many challenges, including military conflicts and political disputes, both domestically and internationally. These trials are also reflected in biblical texts, which speak of future difficulties for the newly formed state. The Bible states that the people of Israel will experience great hardship, but will ultimately find peace and prosperity. This makes it clear that challenges and obstacles are part of a larger plan that leads to improvement and renewal. An important element of the prophecy is the idea that Israel will become a light to the nations. Since its rebirth, Israel has become a leader in technology and medicine, providing aid and support to other countries. This is consistent with the prophetic vision that the country will play a key role in the global community. It is also interesting to consider how modern technology and international relations affect the interpretation of Bible prophecy. For example, peace treaties and diplomatic efforts that occur today can be seen as part of the process predicted by the prophets. Finally, it is important to recognize that Bible prophecies often have deep symbolic meanings that can be interpreted differently depending on the cultural and historical context. Discussion of such topics helps not only to better understand religious texts, but also to see the relevance of ancient predictions in the modern world. After a deep dive into the first prophecy, let's move on to the next one, which concerns the increase in knowledge and the rapid movement of people around the world, which we see in our time thanks to the development of technology and globalization. We move on to the second prophecy, which concerns the increase of knowledge and travel, as described in the book of Daniel. This prophecy speaks of a time when knowledge will increase greatly and people will move here and there. The modern world, with its technological advances and globalization, fits perfectly into this description. Technological progress. Over the past decades, we have witnessed unprecedented growth in the field of information technology. The internet and mobile technologies have turned information into an accessible resource that can be accessed anywhere in the world in just a few seconds. This led to a revolution in education, science, and business. Travel and globalization. With the development of aviation and transport technologies, travel has become faster, cheaper, and more accessible. People can now move around the world faster than ever, which has led to increased cultural and economic interaction between countries. Impact on society. This increase in knowledge and travel opportunities has both positive and negative consequences. On the one hand, access to education and medical services has improved. On the other, challenges associated with information overload and the acceleration of the pace of life have increased. Biblical perspective. From the perspective of biblical prophecy, this increase in knowledge and speed of travel can be seen as a sign of approaching the end times. This makes us think about the spiritual implications of such changes and how believers should respond to the challenges of the modern world. This prophecy, although seemingly neutral from a technological point of view, also touches on the spiritual and ethical aspects of modern life. Impact on lifestyle and morals. The increase in knowledge has made information easily accessible, but it has also created problems of information overload and misinformation. The ability to distinguish truth from lies has become a key skill in the internet age. This raises questions about moral responsibility in the use and dissemination of knowledge. Impact on spirituality. On the one hand, increased access to knowledge has allowed people to study sacred texts and various spiritual practices in greater depth. On the other hand, the modern pace of life and the constant flow of information can distract from spiritual development and internal work on oneself. This creates additional challenges to maintain spiritual balance. Ethical dilemmas in science and technology. The development of technologies such as artificial intelligence and genetic engineering raises new ethical questions. For example, questions about data privacy, the ethics of artificial intelligence, and the moral boundaries of scientific research. Both believers and society at large must discuss these issues to find a balance between progress and ethical standards. Impact on international relations. Increased travel and global connectivity have led to greater interaction between cultures, promoting greater understanding and tolerance. However, it also creates tension and conflict when different views and interests collide. As the prophecy predicted, movements back and forth can both unite and divide nations. This in-depth understanding of the second prophecy shows how ancient texts can resonate with modern realities and provoke reflection on the deeper spiritual and ethical aspects of our lives. Moving on to the next prophecy, We will see how biblical predictions of wars and rumors of wars are also reflected in the modern world. Let's move on to the third prophecy, which speaks of wars and rumors of wars. This prediction can be found in the Gospel of Matthew, which describes the events leading up to the end of times. The prophecy emphasizes that before the second coming, wars will break out and rumors of wars will be heard, indicating periods of great instability and conflict. Modern conflicts. Today's world, unfortunately, is no exception in terms of conflicts. News feeds regularly report on military activities and armed clashes in various parts of the world. These conflicts, from local hostilities to international armed confrontations, can be seen as the fulfillment of this prophecy. Impact on society. These conflicts affect millions of people, causing suffering, destruction, and refugee crises. They also impact international relations, the economy, and global security, increasing instability and uncertainty in the world order. Spiritual reflections. From a spiritual perspective, this period of testing and tribulation can serve as a reminder of the need for peace, forgiveness, and brotherhood among nations. Believers can see in these events a call to renew faith and strengthen spiritual practices, as well as to pray for peace and justice in the world. Practical actions. This is also a time for Christians and all people of goodwill to intensify their efforts to support peace initiatives, help those affected by conflict, and engage in dialogues aimed at resolving disputes and restoring peace. As we continue our discussion of the third prophecy of wars and rumors of wars, it is worthwhile to delve deeper into understanding how these events affect not only international relations, but also the internal state of societies and individuals. Psychological impact. Continuous wars and constant reports of new conflicts place great psychological pressure on people around the world. Feelings of constant threat and instability can lead to increased levels of anxiety and fear among the population. It can also increase public discontent and division when political leaders and the media use these fears to manipulate public opinion. Economic consequences. Wars and military conflicts damage not only the countries directly involved, but also the global economy. Defense spending increases, investment decreases, and trade becomes unstable. These changes can lead to economic recessions that affect the standard of living of ordinary people. Spiritual dimension. In the context of biblical teachings, wars and rumors of wars remind us of the imperfections of human nature and the need to seek spiritual guidance and peace. This prophecy can serve as both a warning and a call for spiritual awakening and a turn to higher ideals in personal life and social practice. The role of believers. During these uncertain times, believers can play a key role in promoting peace and stability. Through prayer, active community participation, and support for humanitarian causes, people of faith can help heal the wounds of conflict and restore public dialogue. This insightful reflection on the impact of war and conflict on the world and on individual consciousness shows how ancient texts continue to be relevant today. Now let's move on to the next prophecy, which concerns natural disasters, to see how they fit into biblical predictions about the end times. Biblical perspective. In the Gospel of Matthew, Christ says that wars and rumors of wars are not the end, but only the beginning of a painful process. This warning helps believers remain vigilant without giving in to panic or fear, as these events are foretold and part of a larger divine plan. The role of peace and forgiveness in the Christian tradition. In the context of wars and conflicts, the Christian tradition has always emphasized the importance of forgiveness and peace. The instructions that Christ left to his followers about loving your enemies and praying for those who persecute you are a reminder that the true resolution of conflicts lies not through retribution but through forgiveness and understanding. Contemporary challenges and Christian responses. Christians today are faced with the many challenges that war and conflict pose to peace and stability. In response to this, many Christian communities and organizations are actively involved in peacekeeping and humanitarian missions. They strive to heal the wounds caused by conflict and rebuild shattered communities. Biblical images and symbols in the context of prophecy. The images used to describe conflict in biblical texts often speak of spiritual struggles between good and evil. These symbols help believers interpret current events as part of a larger struggle, reminding them to strengthen their faith and spiritual resilience. Thus, the third prophecy provides not only a warning about future challenges, but also instructions on how Christians should respond to these challenges, with faith, hope, and an active stance in the pursuit of peace and justice. Now, let's move on to the next prophecy, which concerns natural disasters to understand their role in the biblical context of the end times. The fourth prophecy we will talk about concerns natural disasters such as earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. These events are also often mentioned in the Bible as signs of the end times, warning of coming changes and causing spiritual awakening. Biblical context. The Gospel of Luke says that before the second coming there will be great earthquakes, and in various places famine and pestilence. These words emphasize that natural disasters serve not only as physical destruction, but also as spiritual reminders that the world is in need of redemption and renewal. Modern phenomena. We see that natural disasters are occurring with astonishing regularity around the world, and their scale and impact are increasing under the influence of climate change. Scientific evidence confirms an increase in the frequency and intensity of such events, which can be considered a coincidence with biblical predictions. Spiritual meaning. For believers, these natural phenomena can serve as a reminder of human vulnerability and limitations, as well as the need to respect the world God created. It is also a time for prayer and spiritual preparation for future trials, as prescribed by biblical texts. The role of Christians in response to disasters. Christians around the world are actively involved in helping disaster victims, organizing humanitarian missions, and supporting the reconstruction of affected regions. These actions not only help alleviate suffering, but are also practical manifestations of the Christian principles of love and mercy. As we continue our discussion of the fourth prophecy of natural disasters, we will delve deeper into how these events impact people's spiritual beliefs and daily lives, and look at biblical advice for dealing with such trials. Impact on spiritual perception. Natural disasters often force people to think about deeper questions of life and death, as well as divine predestination and justice. In a biblical context, such events can be seen as reminders of the finitude of human life and the need to seek spiritual salvation. Examples from Scripture. There are many examples in the Bible of God using natural phenomena to achieve divine purposes or as warnings. For example, the story of Noah and the flood shows how disaster can become a means of cleansing and a new beginning. This teaches believers to see difficulties not only as a test, but also as an opportunity for spiritual renewal. Modern scientific research. Modern scientific research confirms that climate change is increasing the frequency and intensity of natural disasters. This knowledge can serve as an additional incentive for Christians and all people to care about preserving the environment as part of God's creation. Spiritual and practical answers. The Christian response to natural disasters includes not only prayer and spiritual support for those affected, but also active participation in environmental initiatives. Churches and believers around the world are calling for responsible stewardship of the Earth's resources and support for sustainable development. Conclusion. The fourth prophecy reminds us that natural disasters are not only a challenge for physical survival, but also an opportunity for spiritual growth and renewal. It is a call for each person to rethink their role in the world and their relationship with nature, based on the biblical teachings of care and stewardship. Now let's move on to the fifth prophecy, which addresses the decline of morality and love among people, to see how this prophecy is reflected in modern social and spiritual challenges. The fifth prophecy concerns the decline of morality and love among people, which is also indicated in biblical texts as one of the signs of the approach of the last times. The Gospel of Matthew says that because iniquity will increase, the love of many will grow cold. This prophecy reflects profound social and spiritual changes in society associated with a departure from traditional moral values. Changes in public morality. In the modern world, there is a clear decline in traditional moral values, which is manifested in various aspects of life. This may include an increase in crime, business dishonesty, the spread of pornography and drugs, as well as deterioration in interpersonal relationships and an increase in divorce. These phenomena can be seen as signs that society is moving away from the biblical teachings of love, mercy, and mutual aid. Impact on personal relationships. Declining moral standards have a profound impact on personal and family relationships. Love, as a moral and spiritual value, is experiencing a crisis. This manifests itself in a decrease in empathy, an increase in selfishness, and a deterioration in the general atmosphere of trust in society. Such changes lead to a weakening of social cooperation and an increase in conflicts and tensions. Spiritual crisis. From a spiritual point of view, the decline of morality reflects a deep spiritual crisis. Biblical principles such as the Golden Rule, do unto others what you would have them do unto you, are losing their meaning for many people. This may cause spiritual practices and religious instruction to become less relevant to younger generations, exacerbating the crisis of faith and spiritual orientation. The role of believers in the modern world. In response to these challenges, believers can play a key role in the revival of moral and spiritual values. Through education, example of personal behavior, participation in public life and charitable activities, Christians can help restore the moral foundations of society. This also includes preaching the importance of forgiveness, love, and mercy as core Christian values. Thus, the fifth prophecy not only warns us about future difficulties, but also calls us to actively work on ourselves and society in order to counter the decline of morality and restore spiritual values. Social disunity and its consequences. The decline of moral values often leads to increased social division. People feel less connected and committed to each other, which can manifest as increased loneliness and isolation. This disunity makes it difficult to solve public problems because people are less interested in collective efforts. Declining respect for authority. Declining respect for authority, be it parents, teachers, or religious leaders, is another manifestation of moral decline. This undermines traditional parenting and learning structures, which in the long term leads to decreased social and personal resilience to challenges. Increasing moral relativity. The rise of moral relativism, where the rightness or wrongness of actions is determined by individual or cultural preferences rather than universal moral laws, is also notable. This results in standards of appropriate behavior becoming uncertain and changing, making understanding and cooperation between different groups and cultures difficult. Impact on religious communities. For religious communities, the decline of public morality is a particular problem as they strive to maintain standards of behavior and belief in conditions where these standards are rejected or ignored by society. This requires churches and other religious organizations to find new ways to attract and retain believers, as well as adapt their activities to changing conditions. Moral regeneration as the answer. The answer to moral decline is moral revival, which begins with the individual effort of each believer to live a life in accordance with the teachings of the Bible. Churches can play a key role by providing resources for education, spiritual support, and social activities aimed at restoring moral values in society. Thus, the fifth prophecy of the decline of morality and love serves as both a warning and a call to action for all who strive to see a more just and compassionate society. This prophecy emphasizes the need to work individually and collectively to restore the foundations on which a healthy society is built. The sixth prophecy concerns a revival of spirituality and interest in religious practices in the world, which is also considered one of the signs of the times before the second coming. This prophecy emphasizes that in times of great crisis and moral decline, people often turn to spiritual and religious sources for solace, direction, and meaning. Revival of spiritual practices. In the modern world, there is a significant increase in interest in spiritual and religious practices. This is evident not only in the revival of traditional religions, but also in the popularity of meditation, yoga, and other forms of spiritual exercise that people incorporate into their daily lives. This revival is often a response to the search for deep answers in the face of global uncertainty and personal anxiety. Impact on society. A renewed interest in spirituality can have a positive impact on society, as spiritual practices often promote the development of personal ethics, empathy, and peace. People who practice spiritual teachings can help create a more harmonious and peaceful society by reducing conflict and improving interpersonal relationships. Examples of modern movements. Examples of this revival include various environmental and spiritual movements that emphasize sustainable development and respect for nature as part of spiritual practice. Many religious communities have also stepped up their activities aimed at social justice and support for vulnerable populations, seeing this as a manifestation of their spiritual beliefs. Challenges and opportunities. However, the revival of spirituality also faces challenges, including commercialization and superficial understanding of spiritual practices. This creates the risk that ancestral teachings may be distorted or simplified into fashionable trends. However, it also provides an opportunity for dialogue and understanding between different cultural and religious groups, promoting greater mutual respect and cooperation. Thus, the sixth prophecy emphasizes the importance of spiritual rebirth as a means of overcoming a moral crisis and as an opportunity to strengthen the social fabric. It is a call to each of us to not only seek personal answers to spiritual questions. The sixth prophecy, emphasizing spiritual revival and increased interest in religion, reflects changes that can be brought about by the internal demands of people in response to crises and moral decline. This revival can be viewed through various aspects, each of which highlights important trends in modern society. Religious revival among youth. Interestingly, in recent years there has been an increasing interest in religious practices among young people, a group that has traditionally been considered alienated from traditional religious structures. Many young people are seeking answers to their questions in religion and spirituality, seeking to find meaning and direction in life, which can be seen in the increase in the number of youth groups and events organized by faith communities. Revival as a reaction to globalization. Spiritual revival can also be seen as a response to the challenges of globalization. In a world where cultural boundaries are blurring and the flow of information is increasing, many seek security and stability in religious and spiritual traditions. This desire for roots helps people maintain their identity and cultural values. The impact of technology on religious revival. Technology also plays a significant role in spiritual renaissance. Social media and online platforms allow people to explore religious teachings, participate in spiritual communities, and share their experiences, regardless of geographic location. This promotes the spread of religious ideas and practices, making them accessible to a wider audience. Environmental movement and spirituality. The connection between environmental movements and spiritual revival is also an important theme. Many religious groups include in their teachings the idea of protecting the environment as part of God's creation. These teachings motivate believers to actively participate in environmental activism and sustainable development, seeing it not only as caring for the planet, but also as fulfilling religious obligations. Thus, the sixth prophecy not only highlights the growth of interest in religion and spirituality, but also points to how these changes can positively impact individual and collective well-being. In the context of contemporary challenges, this revival offers a path to strengthening social sustainability and the moral foundation of society. The sixth prophecy, emphasizing spiritual revival and increased interest in religion, reflects changes that can be brought about by the internal demands of people in response to crises and moral decline. This revival can be viewed through various aspects, each of which highlights important trends in modern society. Religious revival among youth. Interestingly, in recent years there has been an increasing interest in religious practices among young people, a group that has traditionally been considered alienated from traditional religious structures. Many young people are seeking answers to their questions in religion and spirituality, seeking to find meaning and direction in life, which can be seen in the increase in the number of youth groups and events organized by faith communities. Revival as a reaction to globalization. Spiritual revival can also be seen as a response to the challenges of globalization. In a world where cultural boundaries are blurring and the flow of information is increasing, many seek security and stability in religious and spiritual traditions. This desire for roots helps people maintain their identity and cultural values. The impact of technology on religious revival. Technology also plays a significant role in spiritual renaissance. Social media and online platforms allow people to explore religious teachings, participate in spiritual communities, and share their experiences, regardless of geographic location. This promotes the spread of religious ideas and practices, making them accessible to a wider audience. Environmental movement and spirituality. The connection between environmental movements and spiritual revival is also an important theme. Many religious groups include in their teachings the idea of protecting the environment as part of God's creation. These teachings motivate believers to actively participate in environmental activism and sustainable development, seeing it not only as caring for the planet, but also as fulfilling religious obligations. Thus, the sixth prophecy not only highlights the growth of interest in religion and spirituality, but also points to how these changes can positively impact individual and collective well-being. In the context of contemporary challenges, this revival offers a path to strengthening social sustainability and the moral foundation of society. The seventh prophecy we will look at concerns the emergence of false prophets and messiahs who will lead people astray. This is one of the most cautionary predictions in the biblical texts, indicating that in the end times many will try to exploit people's spiritual quests for personal gain or to spread distorted teachings. Biblical context. The New Testament, especially the Gospel of Matthew, warns that in the last times many false prophets will arise who will perform great signs and wonders to deceive even the elect. This prediction serves as a warning to believers to be vigilant and critical of those who offer easy solutions to difficult spiritual issues. Modern manifestation. In today's world, false prophets can appear in many forms, from religious leaders distorting teachings to gain power and wealth, to social media cult figures promoting ideologies that are contrary to basic spiritual principles. The media and the internet have given such figures unprecedented opportunities to spread their ideas. Impact on society. The impact of false prophets on society can be devastating as they can incite conflict, promote division, and exploit people's faith for personal gain. This undermines trust in religious and spiritual institutions, creating confusion and spiritual crisis among seekers of truth. How to recognize false prophets. Recognizing false prophets requires knowledge of religious texts, critical thinking, and spiritual discernment. It is important to test any teaching for consistency with biblical texts and basic tenets of faith. It is also useful to pay attention to the fruits of leaders' actions. True spiritual leaders bring peace, love, and understanding, in contrast to those who sow discord and exploit their followers. The seventh prophecy about the threat of false prophets and messiahs has a profound impact on religious and spiritual perceptions in the world today. This warning becomes especially relevant in the era of globalization and digital technology, when information is disseminated instantly and often without sufficient verification. Use of modern technologies. False prophets today actively use the internet and social networks to spread their teachings. They create attractive but deceptive messages that can mislead even educated and experienced people. Digital environments often reinforce echo chambers in which users are only exposed to information that confirms their biases, leaving them vulnerable to manipulation. Psychological aspects. False prophets often manipulate basic human emotions, fear, hope, and the desire to belong. They offer simple answers to complex questions, promising spiritual salvation or solutions to life's problems. These promises can be especially appealing during times of crisis and uncertainty, making people susceptible to spiritual deception. Cultural and social impact. The influence of false prophets extends not only at the individual level, but also at the level of societies and cultures. They can contribute to the spread of extremist ideologies, undermine social order, and contribute to intercultural and interreligious conflicts. These actions could have long-term consequences for global stability and peaceful coexistence. Spiritual guidance and community support. Strengthening spiritual leadership and community support is important to counter the threat of false prophets. Religious leaders and congregations should be proactive in educating their members, providing them with the tools to critically analyze and understand religious texts. It is also important to work to strengthen spiritual resilience and ethical principles so that people can distinguish between genuine and manipulative spiritual guidance. The seventh prophecy about false prophets and messiahs calls for the vigilance and active role of every believer in defending their faith. It is important to develop spiritual self-education, maintain open and honest dialogue in religious communities, and strive for a deep understanding of spiritual teachings in order to meet the challenges of the modern world. In concluding our examination of the 7 Bible prophecies, it is worth noting that each of them not only provides profound spiritual lessons, but also highlights specific challenges facing modern society. From the rebirth of Israel and the increase of knowledge to the decline of morality and the emergence of false prophets, these prophecies reflect both current and potential global trends, emphasizing the need for vigilance and spiritual preparedness. These prophecies call on every person, regardless of religious beliefs, to reflect on their actions and their consequences on society. They remind us of the importance of personal responsibility to seek truth, cultivate morality, and strive for peace. In this context, spiritual regeneration and critical thinking are key to creating a more just and sustainable world. Importantly, these prophecies also serve as a reminder of the inevitability of change and complexity in the world. They offer opportunities for growth and transformation, calling for deep reflection and active participation in the spiritual life of society. This is especially significant in an era when the world faces rapid social, technological, and environmental change. Thus, studying and understanding these prophecies can be a powerful tool for strengthening personal faith and enhancing efforts to improve the world in which we all live. It is a path to deep spiritual renewal that begins with individual self-awareness and extends to all aspects of human interaction.